Hola Bandidos, ¿cómo estamos? Welcome to Mel's Magic episode 2 of season 2. Today is the 3rd of January 2022. It's the first week of the new year and I hope you had a smooth transition. Vale. I today wanted to expand on our topic of resonance, which we touched upon yesterday. No? I wanted to bring back the topic to my own experience. I noticed yesterday that I was, for myself, a little bit off my resonance in the sense that I was probably more concerned in performing and maybe pleasing you, the audience, rather than being true to myself and speaking from the heart. And that's an interesting observation because it's something I have experienced in a more concrete situation in real life recently as well. But before we dive further into it, I just want to clarify which tarot and oracle cards I'll be using because I often forget to properly reference them. So one of them is the Sacred Power Reading Cards deck. It's got beautiful imagery. Then the Wild Unknown Pocket Tarot. I love it. It's a bit more dark, has a darker tone to it, which I absolutely love. And I'll be using the Enchanted Map Oracle cards too. Vale? All right. So, speaking from my own experience, I recently had an encounter during the holidays where I realized that the outer situation was a reflection of my shadow side. And we've talked about the shadow parts and self in season 1, no? And I tried to accentuate that I feel there's a lot of power in our shadow aspects if we pull them into the light and integrate them. Because those aspects that lie in the shadow and then integrated make us whole. No? So it takes some effort and some work and honesty with yourself to see and to shine that light of discernment and truth into your shadow selves and really ask yourself, what is your true motivation in keeping them in the shadow perhaps? No? Perhaps there's some kind of codependency going on. The ego likes that. And sometimes we don't want to truly stand in our full power because standing in our full power requires or entails taking full responsibility also for our lives. There's no one to blame out there. There's only us creating and manifesting our reality through our thoughts, beliefs, actions, and behaviors, no? So the reflection card from the Sacred Power deck was quite fitting and reflecting to me what I was presented with. So in this situation, I caught myself acting out from my lower self. And the lower self is the kind of summary or group of conditioned thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors that we adopted since we were little and that were probably required so as to defend ourselves and help us survive in a psychological and maybe even physical way as children. And those behaviors often remain in the shadow until we, on our spiritual path, grow and because life wants us to stand in our wholeness, we will pull those shadow parts into our 3D reality and come face to face with those shadow parts. So in my case, I had been working through increasing my self-confidence, my self-worth, my self-value. But I guess my hang-up was still this fear of disappointing others, the primal fear of being rejected, that if I would stand in my truth and say something and be someone that the other person would disagree with, that I would be rejected. Basically comes down to this fear of being unlovable. It's a very deep-seated fear I have. And the outer situation reflected that I was still hanging on to this old lower self behavior. And actually, it's thanks to my inner dissonance, because the situation felt completely out of resonance for myself. I felt negative emotion, I felt crunched up and split energy, which basically means that I was not acting and feeling and thinking in alignment with my higher self. No? So again, feelings are such a good compass and gauge and gauge to as, whether we are off resonance or in alignment with our true resonance, our true alignment. So the situation was reflecting my shadow parts, my shadow behavior, and there was a kind of push and pull between my lower self and my higher self. And I guess I had to ask myself, what was this lower self conditioning? Where was it coming from, A? In what ways did it serve me in the past? And how come I'm still wearing that mask of my lower self, which entails this conditioned behavior? What happens if I take this mask off and reveal, be vulnerable and show my truth, my true self, which perhaps, as we grow or as I've grown, does not coincide with someone else's opinion or perception of me anymore, i.e., perhaps that person's perception of me is actually outdated for my current self, that I have grown into someone else, and that might displease the other person. So in this ego push and pull, my tendency was to keep that mask of my lower self on in order to A, avoid conflict, and B, avoid being judged. I had a huge fear of being judged and criticized. And C, perhaps hanging on tightly to this old version of the relationship, which didn't serve neither of us in the end. Because if you're not authentic, if you do not stand in your truth and express your authentic self, then you're essentially betraying yourself. You're betraying yourself, your higher self, spirit, the other person, and the entire situation. I mean, if we're brutal, it comes down to lying, no? So what keeps us from being authentic and showing our true self? What is the motivation of holding on to this old pattern? Does it really still serve us in our highest good at the moment? It's always, the truth will set us free, that old saying, truth shall set you free. It's painful. It might entail letting go of not only behaviors, but also maybe relationships that served a real purpose in the past, but now from your current point of self either have to evolve with you or have to fall behind. And that's painful, no? And the ego wants to hold on to what is familiar, yeah? So to be truthful with yourself it can be challenging. It's difficult to kind of dig down through your layers of conditioning and reach that truth. And I guess in this process of digging down and seeing what is really authentic for you, what really resonates with you, what you really feel and what you really want to express, a lot of turmoil can come up, a lot of tumultuous emotions can come up. I had this burning sensation in the pit of my stomach, pretty much like this fire here in the Temperance card. And the Temperance card here is usually one of angel energy, but when I looked at this in the context of my little story here, I interpreted it as the kind of balm, the soothing tears, the soothing water of your own self-love and of your own self-compassion to put out or to temper that fire of your emotions that you hold inside due to this dissonance that the situation brought out. So temperance means compassion for yourself and nurturing yourself with self-love. The other card I pulled, which is super fitting in this story, is the Bone Collector. And this card is very much a reminder that deep within us, we have the resources to stand in our own truth and to express it. We can find the courage within to go beyond the conditioning that we perhaps still carry from the past. We have everything we need, whether it's courage, strength, and confidence. We have those qualities inside us, and they're just waiting for us to access them. The bone collector is a bit like this fairy, or this guardian spirit that maybe in your moments of trauma in the past has kept your treasure, your inner treasure, safe, locked away safely within you. And now that, in my case, for example, it's safe for me to be authentic, I'm able to open that treasure chest deep within and take out and tap into those treasures that I had to hide because I was wounded in the past, and which I had to lock away in my self-defensive layers, ego layers, and self-defensive mechanisms in order to survive. Now is a time for me to stand in my self-worth and stand in my own truth, which may not resonate even with the closest people around me. That's something I have to accept. But for me to stand in my authenticity is not only good for myself, but also for those involved, the loved ones around me. So I need to remind myself of that. It's okay to be me. I have everything I need. I can reach down and tap into my strength, my confidence, and my gifts. Yeah. The next card I pulled was the Fates, number 17, from the Wisdom of the Oracle deck. And this card in this story reminds me that every situation is fated. Every relationship that appears in my 3D reality has a purpose, serves a purpose, and that each relationship holds a little star or a little key to unlock another shadow part of myself, or to shine a light on a shadow part of myself that I was repressing or keeping in my subconscious. And it not only holds the light, but it holds a key to my further development. Yeah, everything happens for our greatest good, even those, or especially those situations that are challenging and painful and create conflict in ourselves. Those are there to remind us and to work through and to really check with ourselves, what is my truth in this situation? What rings true for me? And do I have enough self-worth and self-confidence to express it to somebody, especially to somebody I care for? Yeah, the Fates. And to end my little story, I pulled this card, which is the Star of the Wild Unknown Pocket Tarot. And I guess personally, this card spoke to me in the context of the story, because my last, what I want to end the story with is perhaps this notion that, every star needs darkness to shine in, and that it's often the brightest stars that come from the deepest, darkest night. Yeah. So if you're going through a dark night of the soul, whether it's big despair, whether, or I don't want to minimize struggle, but on the spectrum of negative emotion and despair, depression, anxiety, all of those painful states we go through, remember that they also serve a purpose, and they always happen for us to recognize maybe our depth and to dig deep inside and to find that courage and to realize that we are a shining star, and that we actually need those painful and difficult situations for us to realize, recognize, and shine in our true, authentic light. Vale? So this is my story of today. It helps me summarize my own experience, and I hope perhaps something resonated with you in here. If yes, I'd be super grateful if you would like, share and subscribe to my channel. I'm grateful to everyone who is here listening, and I hope you can also find some meaning in my story. Voila. I look forward to the next episode 3, coming up soon, and I wish you not only light but also shadow, because there is no light without darkness. Vale? Lots of love. Have a beautiful first week of January 2022, and stay tuned for more of Mel's Magic. Ciao.